It's great to be back in the Devil's River. So this morning I'm here at the lodge at Sanders Point, just north of Del Rio. And why am I here? Well, this is where the Devil's River enters Lake Amistad from the north. So this is probably the best spot to access the Devil's River on the downstream end. There is a public boat ramp further to the south, but you have to paddle quite a bit further to get upstream into the beautiful portion of the Devil's River. There are some interesting ruins right here on the property. Sign back there says that this was built by the National Park Service. Looks like maybe this was once some sort of visitor center. So just ahead is my kayak. This is where I'm going to start from. The hike down here is a bit treacherous and difficult. It's best if you have two people to carry a kayak down. It'd be much easier. Depending on the lake levels, you might have a very different experience getting into the water and going upstream. Lake levels have recently risen 25 feet. So we're heading that way. So just ahead there on the right is a spring coming out of the rocks. Let's see if I can get a good look at it here. See it right there? Look at that. Really nice. Now I heard there's another spring just ahead, a much larger one. Let's see. I noticed right there in the cliff that rock has more of a travertine look to it. So I suspect there are some big springs or maybe even caves around here. Look right up there. Oh, here's another spring coming out. Yep, look at that. Wow. Nice. And this is where the Devil's River enters Lake Amistad. The last little rapid right there. Beautiful. So I've worked my way upstream through a series of shallows and pools. I'm going to try to work my way up past that series of rapids. The thing I really wanted to see is just ahead on the right. So see if we can press on. So I've decided to park my kayak right here on this little island just upstream of that last rapid. And I think I can actually move faster if I just leave this kayak behind. But as you can see, this big, broad, flat of shallow water. So I might as well just walk, honestly. So I finally made it to my destination. Unless you're looking for it, you might not see this, but a tributary off to the right is Big Satan Creek, which flows out of Satan Canyon. Let me tell you, this water is cold. So this is my stopping point. This must be where the spring comes out of the ground. There are rock shelters galore here. I climbed up just a little bit to get a closer look at one of them. So now I'm back in the Devil's River. Now we're talking. Glad the sun finally came out. You can see this river in all its glory. There's no river in Texas as delicious as the Devil's. Look at that emerald green pool of water. So when I made my first video about the Devil's River, several people were upset about the name. But if you understand who named the river and the context and have a sense of humor, maybe you'll be a little less upset about it. I'm gonna tell you a little story about my favorite Texas legend, Jack Hayes, otherwise known as John Coffee Hayes. This was a man that if you met him at a saloon, you might not think much of him. Jack Hayes was a soft-spoken man, but when it came time to fight, wow. I'm not sure that anyone was as brilliant of a warrior and a fighter in Texas history. Back in the 1840s, there were many Comanches all across Texas. Right or wrong, many people are upset about that in these times, but along comes Jack Hayes. He was one of the first Texas Rangers and one of the first men who learned how to defeat the Comanches. Some of the greatest warriors in human history. They were unbelievably athletic on horseback. Amazing, some of the stories I've heard about what they could do. But Jack Hayes studied them and learned their ways, learned their methods, and devised plans to defeat them in battle. And he was quite successful. In fact, he was in a skirmish at Enchanted Rock where by himself defeated a sizable group of Comanches. And he did so by being patient and waiting for the right time to strike. And if you haven't read any literature about Jack Hayes, I strongly encourage you to do so. My favorite Texas legend. And one more fun fact about him, later in life he continued to travel out to the west, ended up in California, where he became the first sheriff of the city of San Francisco. So what does all this have to do with the Devil's River? Well, Jack Hayes was out roaming the land, exploring the territory, and he came across the Devil's River for the first time. At that point, it was called like St. Peter's River or something like that. And when Jack Hayes saw the rugged, unforgiving landscape around it, he chuckled and said, "More like the Devil's River." And the name stuck. And that's how the Devil's River got its name. And probably how Satan Canyon was ultimately derived. If Jack Hayes in jest called it the Devil's River, well, that's just fine by me. Let's face it, when you hear about a river called the Devil's, you want to know what the heck that looks like. You want to go see that river. So there's one thing you really want to be mindful of if you decide to wade around in the Devil's River. This is a very rugged river bottom. And there are places where the pools are very, very deep. Sometimes these pools can be filled with mud and fine-grained sediment. And so
while ago, I accidentally stepped into one of these things. I thought it was solid ground, and I went in almost waist deep. So make sure if you wade around, make sure you're stepping onto solid rocky ground. And if you're uncertain, feel a little bit with your foot first. So if you don't want to go all the way to Satan Canyon, if you just come upstream about 3 miles where you hit the first shallows, the first rapids, park your boat, park your kayak or canoe, get out, wade around this river, go upstream maybe a few hundred yards or so, just fish in some of these holes. I guarantee you it's great fishing. Now just 3 miles of waves and wind and I'll be back.